And no matter what you do, you will have to destroy parts of you to become who you are supposed to be. The person you are right now is not built to survive the life you're asking for. You're carrying habits that once protected you, but now chain you. You're holding on to stories that were only ever meant to get you through the night. And you're still chasing dreams that belong to someone you no longer are. If you want to grow, if you want to become, you will have to bury parts of yourself and walk away before the dirt even settles.
We like to think of growth as a beautiful process, sunlight, progress, becoming better. But the truth is, it rarely feels that way when you're inside it. There's an old story about a man who carried a heavy stone everywhere he went. He believed the stone protected him, that without it, he'd be exposed to the storms of life. But the years passed and the storms never came, at least not the ones he imagined. Instead, the real storm was the weight he carried every day. One day, the stone slipped from his grasp and shattered. And in that moment, the man realized the truth. It had never been protecting him. It had been keeping him from moving forward. Jung understood this. We all carry stones, beliefs, habits, identity that once kept us safe. To let go of them is painful because we've built our sense of self around them. Consciousness doesn't arrive like a gift. It arrives when the old version of you can no longer survive. When you're forced to face what you've been avoiding and walk into the unknown without your armour. Today, the stones look different. They're the stories we post online to convince others we're okay. They're the jobs we stay in because we're afraid of starting over. They're the relationships we keep alive out of habit, not love. And when these things finally break, when life rips them from us, it feels like loss, but often it's the first breath of freedom. The path to consciousness is paved with these small funerals. And the pain you feel isn't proof that you're failing. It's proof that something old is dying, so something truer can take its place. So the question isn't whether you can avoid the pain, it's whether you can walk through it without turning back. Kierkegaard once wrote that despair is not the loss of hope, it's the refusal to become who you truly are. Think about that. Not the kind of despair where life goes wrong or when tragedy strikes, but the quiet, slow despair of living a life that doesn't belong to you. It's subtle. On the outside, everything can look fine. Your job, your home, your relationships. But somewhere inside, there's a hairline crack in the foundation. You feel it in small moments. When you wake up and can't remember the last time you felt alive. When you find yourself scrolling for hours to avoid the thoughts that surface in silence. When you realize you've been on autopilot for months, maybe years. Jung would say, this is the beginning of individuation, the long, uncomfortable process of becoming whole. But that process doesn't start with joy or inspiration. It starts when something breaks. Sometimes it's obvious. The relationship ends. The job is lost. The health scare arrives without warning. Other times, it's smaller. The day you finally admit to yourself that the thing you've been working toward is not what you want at all. And here's the truth that we fight to avoid. When that moment comes, you cannot go back. Once you see the crack, you can't unsee it. Once you realize the person you are is not the person you could be, the old life becomes too small to contain you. The work of dismantling the walls you've built around yourself, not because you were weak, but because once you thought they were keeping you safe. Nietzsche told us, one must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. Chaos is not polite. It doesn't arrive with a plan. It tears through your life like a storm, scattering everything you thought you could depend on. And most of us spend our entire lives trying to keep that storm outside the walls. We fill our schedules, we drown in distractions, we keep the music loud so we don't have to hear the thunder inside. But chaos doesn't just vanish because you ignore it, it waits. And when it comes, the breakup, the burnout, the late night moments when you suddenly question everything, it feels like destruction. But Nietzsche understood it differently. He saw chaos as raw material. The mess of life is the clay we shape ourselves from. Without it, nothing new can be born. Think about every story of reinvention you admire. The artist who left their safe career to create something that didn't exist before. The person who walked away from comfort to build a life aligned with their values. None of them did it from a place of calm. It was chaos that pushed them. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You can't choreograph that chaos. You can't wait for the perfect time to burn down what no longer serves you. The fire will never ask for your permission. So when it comes, you have two choices. Hide until it passes, or step into it, and let it strip away what you were never meant to keep. That's how stars are born. That's how new selves are forged. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every day, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. We like to imagine life as something we can hold together if we just try hard enough, as if our determination could somehow make people stay, make time slow down, make things last forever. But Marcus understood what we avoid, that loss is not an interruption of life. It is life. Every chapter we live has an ending written into it from the start. Every role we play will one day no longer fit. And yet when the ending comes, we act surprised, shocked that the job ended, the friendship faded, the dream expired. We treat loss like it's an accident, when in reality, it's the most reliable thing we know. The Stoics would tell you this: the things you cling to were never yours to keep. You're a steward of them for a time, nothing more. And here's the hard part. Growth often wears the mask of loss. It doesn't look like a beginning when it's happening. It looks like the end of something you thought you needed. And in the moment, it hurts. It feels unfair, but loss clears the ground. It forces you to build differently. And sometimes the only way to see what you're capable of is to be stripped of everything you thought you couldn't live without. So the question isn't, why did I lose this? It's who am I now in the space that's been left behind? Pascal believed that all of humanity's problems came from our inability to sit quietly in a room alone. It sounds simple, almost laughable, until you try it. Until you sit with no phone, no music, no conversation, and watch what comes up. The noise you've been drowning out for years begins to rise. Old fears, forgotten regrets, the questions you've been too busy to answer. This is why destruction is followed by stillness. It's not punishment, it's the space in which the next version of you is decided. Jung would say that the self which rises from this silence is not a new self, it is the truest self, the one that was there all along, buried under habits, stories, and defences you thought were you. But here's the danger. In the stillness, you'll be tempted to rebuild exactly what you had before, because the unknown is uncomfortable. Rebirth requires patience. It's like planting a seed and resisting the urge to dig it up to see if it's growing. In the silence, the roots take hold. In the quiet, the shape of what's next begins to form. And you have to trust that when you step out of that room, out of that season of stillness, you will carry something different in you. Not a mask you've crafted for the world, but a foundation that cannot be taken by loss or chaos again. So when Jung says, there is no coming to consciousness without pain, he is not issuing a warning. He's extending an invitation into the loss you've been avoiding, into the chaos you've tried to quiet, into the stillness you've been too afraid to enter. Because on the other side of pain is not just survival, it's clarity. The kind of clarity you can't buy, copy or fake. The kind that comes from dismantling everything false and standing in what remains. And here's what you might find, that the person you were so afraid to lose was never really you, that you've been carrying a stranger inside your own skin, a version of you built to please, to protect, to perform. And now, finally, you're free to put them down. Consciousness isn't a prize you win, it's the byproduct of dying to what you're not. And if that sounds dramatic, it's because transformation is dramatic. It is the demolition of what you've outgrown. So maybe the question isn't, can I handle the pain? Maybe it's, what will I miss if I turn back now?